Salutations and welcome, friends, to another episode of Amalfi Sports. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis, and today we're going to preview races at a track that is near and dear to my heart and is also near and dear to me because it's right down the road. We're headed to Colonial Downs for Tuesday's Virginia Oaks and Grade 3 Virginia Derby. Some really great horses and exciting fields. I have a special guest to join me handicapping the races today. So this should be a lot of fun. However, before we get to that, just wanted to remind everyone to be on the lookout in the coming weeks for our new podcast, The Win Place Show. You can get weekly previews, and we also do interviews there. So listen, we're going to continue to post on YouTube. If that's how you've been consuming our content, thank you. That'll continue to stay there. But I know YouTube's not always the most convenient. Sometimes you like to pop in the car, drive into the track, you're taking your kids to school, you're going to work. It's easier just to listen to a podcast. So you can get these previews in podcast form in the near future. Like I said, we also have interviews with people across the horse racing industry, and I'll also just be doing some other pods on episodes about news and updates in the industry as well. Actually, later this week, I'm going to be sitting down with jockey Farron Peterson in what should be a really fascinating interview. And we have a lot more of those types of interviews to come. And the best place to get all of them is at Amalfi Media. And so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel or check us out at amalfimedia.com. Additionally, to stay up to date with all the daily horse racing activity, make sure to follow me at the handle @FailedToMenace. I have a lot of great content and some more giveaways in the coming weeks. You don't want to miss out on those. Finally, be on the lookout for my picks and previews for the Labor Day weekend races at Del Mar and Saratoga. The best place to get all of that coverage is, of course, amalfimedia.com. As always, please make sure to like and comment with your thoughts on how you think the race is going to break down at Colonial Downs this week and share with your fellow horse racing fanatics on social media. Well, speaking of social media, I am going to be joined today by somewhat of a social media celebrity, and that is Bri Mott, who, if anyone who has ever been on horse racing Twitter knows, Bri is a wonderful handicapper. She does a lot of daily updates for Cup of Colonial. It really helps promote Stable Duel, which I think is a great way of growing the sport. It's a really fun kind of fantasy horse racing app where you can do a little bit of wagering, but kind of build a team just like you would, build a stable just like you would. So Bri has been following Colonial Downs this entire season. She's going to be joining me for this preview of the Virginia Oaks and Virginia Derby. So sit back and enjoy our conversation and picks and previews for the big races at Colonial Downs. Bri, thanks so much for coming onto the show and helping me break down the big races this week at Colonial Downs. But before we get started and dive into Colonial, I wanted to take a minute and let you talk about Stable Duel a little bit. I love fantasy sports. I love horse racing. Stable Duel seems to have combined those two things. Why don't you let my listeners know a little bit more about what that's all about?
Yeah, so Stable Duel, just as you said, is the format that you would find in a fantasy football league, but we brought it to the sport of horse racing. So, from my end, I truly think it's the best merge between the mainstream sports fans and sports gamblers to the horse racing world. Our sport is pretty intimidating to get into because to find the data, then to read the data of the past performances, then where do you bet, how do you bet, it's just a lot different than it is in sports. And so, Stable Duel makes it really easy from the get-go. We have an app in Android, an app in iOS, and pretty much you would go in and you would pick a race card. So since we're talking about Virginia Derby, you would pick the Virginia Derby day, and then you would have $50,000 to spend, and you would select 10 horses to be your stable, your team. And obviously the horses with the, shorter odds, the favorites, are going to cost you more money. So you can't pick 10 favorites. You're going to have to organize, a strategy to pick a good stable that has some value horses and some favorites. And, but the cool thing is you're not just playing against that race, you're playing all the races against other people. And so, it might be a $25 entry. You might only have 100 other stables to go against, and you could win $500. And it's just you watch your stable move up and down the leaderboard. So it's really fun. If you haven't tried it, we have free games. I know you've gotten in some of the free games. I'm sure you've gotten in some of the paid games too. I mean, it's just really fun and competitive, but also social, and people are cheering each other on Twitter and everywhere else. So.
Yeah, no, we're recording this Friday night, and I'm headed up to Charlestown where you are this evening, and I'm going to be playing that. I'm also going to be playing the late pick 5 that you guys are trying out this Friday, so I'm excited about that. So moving on to Colonial, during the season, you've been doing one of my favorite series. I kid you not, I watch it every single morning, a Cup of Colonial. And where you kind of give fans a couple of horses to watch for in different races each day at Colonial Downs. Obviously, you've been following this season closely at Colonial. So I wanted to ask before we get into the races, have you noticed any trends this season at Colonial in terms of the jockeys, the trainers, the surface, that sort of thing? What's been sticking out to you?
Yeah, this has been really fun for me. This is the first racetrack I've ever, sat down and capped every single day, and that was for the purpose of the Cup of Colonial. So thanks for watching. But it's been really fun. It's been an awesome challenge for me, and trend-wise, I don't know if I found trends per se, but I do like with Colonial that they're horses that are constantly coming in from other racetracks. So when I look at it, I can look at the ones that are training, and I do like to see horses that have at least had one work on the track that they're working on so that they get the familiarity of the turns, just their surroundings. There's a lot of talk, like let's say Kentucky Derby Day. That's the first time a lot of horses are seeing that big of a crowd, that big of a grandstand. It is like a little intimidating. So, simplicity of just being at the racetrack, getting the feel of the track and what their surroundings are. I like to see horses that work at a racetrack ahead of time. So I do look for that. But on the flip side, some of them don't, because they're just shipping the day of from Pimlico or from, Parks or wherever it is. And so I kind of rate those tracks. So for instance, we're capping the preview for Virginia Derby Day. There's a horse that won, I think the last 4 starts, but they won at Arlington Park. To me, the competitive nature of Arlington Park doesn't rate to the same competitive nature right now at Colonial Downs. So I think a lot of people might look at that and be like, well, the horse won 4 in a row, so it's got to be on a heater. Possibly, but it might be on a heater against middle schoolers versus, playing the seniors in high school. So for trend-wise, I do like to see, horses that come from competitive races from other racetracks, or, Fair Hill is obviously a great track that is close by. The trainers do very well there, easy to ship in. And so I kind of look for coming from a competitive place and then being at Colonial, or being on Colonial and they're sitting there and training there on a daily basis. And then, some of the connections just work really well. Like Karamanu's obviously leading rider. He's hard to discount in any race. So if you think the horse is live and he's on it, to me, that's something that's easy to rate well. And then you put him with... is it Alan Ferris or Ferris Allen? So now I'm second guessing myself.
Alan Ferris.
Again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you put him with Alan Ferris, and I do think that that's a duo that, you've got to just keep an eye on. So you just see those two, and maybe the horse is like rated a little bit under some of the other ones, but those two connections do together. So trend-wise, there's a lot to think about. And this track I actually think is really fun because it's not just... you don't have like one trainer that just has all of the horses. Like it is just always a different race every time. It's a different possibility. And so it's been a really fun challenge.
Yeah. I know I had Jessica Paquette on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she's the on-air handicapper and analyst at Colonial. And she talked a lot about how, to your point, how unusual Colonial's turf is. And it's not a turf that necessarily translates well for horses that may be very effective on turf, but it's a turf that sometimes a little bit of a bigger bodied horse does well on. Some of the slighter framed horses might struggle a little bit. And so again, I'm like you, I like to see a horse that's done well at Colonial before, that has worked there a little bit, or that has trainers that are very familiar with the surface. And you go, okay, they know what they're getting into, bringing this horse down here. So, Yeah, it's a fun place, and if nobody's ever been there that's listening, definitely go down and check it out. It's a really fun vibe, very down home,
Yeah.
very rural, and just a lot of fun.
Yep.
So yeah, and if you drive like 10 minutes away, you have no cell service, but it's a lovely. While you're there, it's great.
Yeah.
So well, let's dive into things, and I just want to run through the field real quick and just list off the post positions for everyone listening. So in the Virginia Oaks, this is a race for 3-year-old fillies. It's a mile and an eighth on turf, and starting as 12-horse field. Starting in post position 1, you have Adelaide Miss from Australia. Then you have Line Dancing, Flippant, Fun While It Lasted, Time for Glory, Belle Belissa, which is a horse I'd like to talk a little bit about. Porque No, who's actually jockeyed by Farron Peterson, who's going to be joining me on the show next week. Gold for Kitten, Double Blessed, Out of Sorts, 11-horse Invincible Gal. You'll notice some strong connections there with Graham Motion and a household name in Jose Ortiz. And then finally, Zerarat. And so, I wanted to switch things over to you first, Bri. Are there any horses? This is a pretty evenly matched field, I thought, when I was going through and handicapping this race. There are a lot of horses that I think can run a pretty similar number. But I was wondering if there were any horses that stuck out to you in terms of either providing some potential value or just that you like in terms of being on a good heater, to your point earlier, or just a good matchup on this turf.
Yeah, so I kind of have 3 with Bella Belisa is definitely one of them. I mean, a heck of a closer, especially in the last race. And the speed figures of of her late kick are amazing. So, I have Flippant. So that's the 3-horse. Victoria Oliver's the trainer. We've got Bejarano aboard. A really nice speed figure the last time out, has won her 2 last races, her maiden, and then she went on to win another one. So thinking like, did it just click that she knows what her job is to do? And it even shows that she stumbled in the last one and was able to close 10 lengths back in 7th place, all the way to win and a half a length. So I've got that one definitely on my radar here. I don't necessarily love, the trainer's stats per se, but again, like they're not awful. She doesn't have much at Colonial Downs, right? So I don't think you can rate the trainer stats there. One last start, she's 19%. That's pretty good if you ask me. So definitely on my list there. And Fun While It Lasted is one of Sweezy's. Sweezy's got 2 in here, and I definitely like the Fun While It Lasted a little bit better. You got Fergal Ninja aboard. The thing that worries me on this horse is you're adding some distance here, and she has shown in some of them that she's kind of puttered out. But let me get to her thing. Where are you? There we go. But she was in some very competitive races between Belmont and Saratoga, and she lost by her nose in her last one. So I think when you're coming from Saratoga and you're doing that well, I think you should kind of keep an eye out on this horse. And Sweezy does a very good job at placing his horses where they can win, even if the public doesn't think so. I've seen him win at 25-1. He's got a knack for understanding that his horse has a shot, and he places them correctly. And so I'm not going to discount this horse either. And then I'll actually wait for you if you want to start with the Belle Belisa. But I've got that horse on my radar too.
Yeah, I love Belle Belisa. I mean, anybody who kind of watches my show knows that I have a type. And my type is lightly raced horses who show a lot of potential and who've won their first or second times out. I like that profile. Ran a 69 Beyer speed number the first time. You would typically expect for that number to jump up between your first and second time out. Again, love the closer, the closing speed there. And so I think with a slight improvement, this is a horse that I very much so have on my radar. The other horse I have is Porque No, which is a horse I'm interested in. This is a horse that's won 5 of the 7 lifetime starts and run against good competition, lost to Cone Lima, very good horse. So has kind of run against upper echelon competition in comparison to some of the rest of the field. Slight step up in distance for her. But she's done well at a mile and a 16th, and the fact she's been putting away people at a mile and a 16th makes me think a mile and an eighth isn't going to be too much of a problem. Also, I have Farron on the podcast coming up, so like I'm just rooting for her to win so I can talk to her about it.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point earlier as well, the Gold for Kitten is a horse that is 4 for 4. Now, unlike the horse that we're going to talk about, I think in the next race that's coming in from Arlington Park, Gold for Kitten's a horse that has won at Colonial and has won well. So, I has won very close. I mean, I think combined has won 4 races by like a total of a length. So it's always like just by the skin of her teeth. And so maybe in a step up in competition, that's not what you want to see. But those are a couple of horses that I have my eyes on.
Also, though, something crazy to look at. I mean, Brendan Walsh at Colonial is like hitting at 75%. He's brought 4 horses there. He's got 3 wins in 1 second. I mean, he obviously brings them in there to win. And then you put a Joe Rocco aboard. I don't know. Like, you've got some steam there for sure. So definitely something to think about in that one.
Yeah. So one of the horses I did want to bring up was Invincible Gal, because this is a horse, I think the casual fan who might just be going out to Colonial for the first time because it's the Virginia Derby and Virginia Oaks, they're going to see Jose Ortiz. And if they've been following, horse racing at all, they go, oh, I know that guy. He's running the Kentucky Derby. He's runs up in Saratoga. He runs the biggest races, and he's a great jockey. So this must mean it's a great horse. That doesn't always translate. And I don't particularly like Invincible Gal quite a bit in this race. And just, hasn't won since breaking her maiden. And this is a step up in distance. And I didn't know if you saw it any differently there.
No, yeah. So I think you see Ortiz and you get that first jolt, and it's like, well, wait a minute, and for me, just kind of how you talked about, like, when they break their maiden, you want to see that they do well then and then continue. And this horse definitely has. You can't discount. So it broke its maiden, $72,000 maiden special weight at Saratoga. I mean, everybody's mind's blown is when you break a maiden first time out at Saratoga. So, of course, the next thing they do is they put it in a stakes race. Well, she did well there, thankfully, and she continued to do well. Now, there's been some flunks, but that's in a grade 1. This is not a grade 1. You've got a second by a neck in a grade 2, a grade 3. She's got good jockeys that have always been on her. I do think, to Jessica's, and she's definitely got more knowledge of this, I do think the turf course runs a little bit differently at Colonial. And on the tight turn side of turf courses versus others, I think Jose is a great rider, but when you're coming from Saratoga and Churchill, I think Colonial is just a different story. And I don't know, it doesn't look like he has done anything at Colonial thus far. So I would put some of the other riders that know the track over this horse for a couple different reasons, and that would sort of be one of them as well. So yeah, I think to the thought of like everyone's gonna rate this horse, I expect some really tight odds, and I always like to fade favorites because I want to find value. Sure. And I think Colonial is a great track to do that, and so I would try to fade this one. I would try to fade this one for sure.
Yeah. No, I cannot emphasize that enough. I was there opening day, and I was just getting my ass handed to me, pardon my language, like the first 5 races.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And finally I just went down and was like, this horse likes 7 furlongs on turf and has run at Colonial, and it was a 50-1 shot. And I was like, sure, I'm just going to, and it hits. And I'm just like, yep, okay, there you go. So it's just like.
Opening day was insane. Yeah. It was. Yeah. Opening day was insane.
Yeah.
So the other one that I do want to point out of sorts. So that's the Sheldon Russell, Brittany Russell team. Now, and I don't know what the weather is, I haven't looked. If there is a chance that this turf would be soft or just have a little bit of give, I would include this horse, because if you look at the form, the horse won with soft and good turfs, and I don't know, I like to see when the surface changes a little bit and then horses do well, and this horse did well in a $75,000 stake by 3 lengths ahead, and then a $53,000 allowance as well when the turf was a little bit softer. So I just think that's something to think about when you're going and looking at some of the weather changes. So if there's some give in the turf, I would put Out of Sorts in your mix.
Yep, absolutely. And just to let you know, the weather is going to be probably somewhere between a 30 and 40% chance of thunderstorms Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So there's a chance that you're going to have a little bit of a softer give on that turf. So that's a great point. So, so do you have any sense of who you think is going to win this race? I don't want to put you on the spot too early, but just didn't know if you had a feeling of who's going to win. There's a lot of good contenders.
I know. No, I don't. Those three that I have written down, I've really got to kind of dive more in and like find my conviction harshly on those three. But I
Yeah.
definitely like the three, the flippant, and Bella Belisa. I like the closing ability there. So I kind of need to look at like hoping that there's kind of a speed duel through a couple of them,
Yeah.
and I haven't gotten that
Yeah.
deep into it. And so then I think that that would set up really nice for Bella Belisa.
Yeah.
And then I've got Fun While It Lasted, one of the Sweezies. But now that you've been talking about his other one, I got to look at that one. I just sometimes it's like good to like have these conversations. Other times
Yeah.
you're like, well, crap. Now I need to totally revamp myself.
I know there are a lot of good horses in this race. I think, maybe it's sentimental. I'm leaning a little bit towards Porque No, but yeah, Belle Belisa is a horse I really like a lot. And Kitten's Joy, or Gold for Kitten, I should say. So many horses with the name Kitten, I just always get them screwed up. Gold for Kitten, though, is another horse that I really like. I think that's probably going to be my top three in all likelihood. But well, let's transition to the big one, the Grade 3 Virginia Derby. And just again to run through the field for this, again, a 12-horse field, 1.125 on turf for 3-year-olds. And in post position 1, we have Search for Truth, then Indian Lake, Eye for the Cat, Slicked Back, which is a Brad Cox horse. In the 5-hole, it has In Can Be Done by Greg Sacco. And then a Wooten Asset by Graham Motion and Jose Ortiz again. Experienced, Hard Rye Guy, 007, my favorite name in the race, Shady McGee, Draft Capital, and then finally Hidden Enemy, which is trained by all-time winning trainer Steve Asmussen. So again, I will turn things over to you first. Who do you have circled in this field? Who are you liking? What stands out?
Yeah, so I actually, when I was doing a flash cap, I've got 4, but I'll probably just talk about 2. I'll go down to some of the outside posts. So Draft Capital here won the last 4. Now, started out at a maiden 12.5, but is winning now at an optional claiming 75. The other thing I like about this is literally every race you're looking at improvement. So this last race won by 4 lengths. This race before that won by 3 lengths. You've got horses in here that are pretty decent. I don't know that this horse can blow out the field in any capacity, but I think if can continue this form of improvement and obviously a step up here in a graded stakes, I think Draft Capital has a shot. The trainer, Doug Matthews, is training at a 27%. Nothing at Colonial Downs, but Uncle Mo, which, Uncle Mo is just freaking Uncle Mo. So, yeah, I like this horse. I definitely think that you can rate it. One last start by this trainer at 43%. So, definitely a step up. But the other one I do like as well is the 1 horse. And again, I think both maidens, it did pretty well. Got second in a maiden special weight, 40,000. Then Joe Rocco got aboard at Colonial in a $49,000 maiden special weight and won by 11.5 lengths. And I think that that's a little insane. So can this horse come back in this big of a step up? I mean, crazier things have happened at Colonial. So I'm hoping that there would be some massive value here. And I might do, like a win place and kind of hit for both here, hopefully. But Search for Truth, the one, I'm rating those 2 as well. So I've got Indian Lake written down, and Hard Ride Guy with Ian Wilkes is also some other ones. But, I'll stick with those 2 for now and hear what you've got.
Yeah, I'm with you on Search for Truth. That was the very first thing that popped out to me. Again, this is a horse that kind of hits my sweet spot of lightly raced, constantly improving efforts, huge wins, step up in competition. You're going to find value there, I think, as well. I agree with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I like that profile quite a bit. And you would expect for horses that are still learning to run that they're going to keep improving every time out. They're learning a little bit more. They're learning to brake a little bit better. They're learning how to deal with traffic a little bit more. And so, again, you would just expect for that to continue to go up. And for any horse to win by 11 lengths at Colonial, it's just like, holy crap. Okay, this horse knows what he's doing there. So that was one. The other one that I looked at was Slicked Back. And this was a horse in the 4 slot that, had a really tough time at the gate last time out. If this horse breaks I think there's a chance that, again, there could be some value here as the Brad Cox horse obviously won his other two races. Again, if you discount that second race where it sounded like there was a lot of workup in the paddock and at the gate. If you discount that one, you saw the same profile that you see in Search for Truth, which is a young horse constantly improving numbers. And so can this horse run better than an 80 Beyer speed from last time out? Now, to your point, this is a horse that's been kind of out of the loop from Colonial, maybe is not going up against the best competition, and this is going to be going up against a harder field. But those are two that I kind of had my eye on as well. I agree with you. Hard Ride Guy is another one that I did have my eye on. I have a feeling that horse is going to pop up on the board. I don't know if I like it to win, but certainly on exotics, I have a feeling that's going to be a solid addition to a trifecta or a superfecta sort of a bet. So those are a couple that I have, but
Yep.
I don't know. Did I change your mind at all on Slickback?
No, so I actually have Slickback on written down, and to the point of the second race, so, and I know that this is gonna piss bettors off, right? But it's just it's the reality of horsemanship to a certain degree. The horse didn't break. It probably then just couldn't get its feet underneath it. It probably got stressed out, and I think Florent probably did the right thing and was just like, okay, like this is washed. Like it's not going to be a race to sit there and push you to. And so probably just rode the horse, galloped out. And so, yeah, it says 33 lengths here. I don't think that that's worrisome. I don't think that the horse tried. I don't think that, Florent made him try. So I'm not worried about, getting beat by 33 lengths. Like that's stuff we talk about in Stable Duel as well. I think that you can absolutely throw that race out. And the other thing about that too is that race was on dirt. I almost sometimes like to see that and then see a really nice effort on turf if they're running in a turf race, because it shows that they prefer the turf. So that only to me gives you a little bit more conviction in the race that they're running. If it's on a turf service, like they didn't like the dirt, so that's fine. Now they're back on their home turf, get it, and and they're gonna perform. So yeah, definitely something to that. And the other thing for Search for Truth with the 11 and a half lengths, like, yes, it was a maiden special weight, but it's also at the same distance. A lot of these maiden races that horses run, and then they get a step up, they're also getting a step up in class and distance. This horse, won by 11 lengths at a mile and an eighth. Like, it's not having a step up in distance, and it smashed the field. So, that makes me rate it even a little bit higher. So, for sure.
Yeah. No, and it's a great point you bring up, because usually I'm hesitant if a horse is stepping up in distance and class. I can excuse kind of one, but both sometimes then I'll have some questions. But in this case, I usually lean towards distance. If you have distance in your background, then I tend to kind of, okay, this horse can, at least I know this horse can run at this and won't kind of either peter out or in sprint races kind of not have enough speed. So the other horse that I want to bring up is Hidden Enemy. And this is a horse that has monster pedigree, sired by Galileo, who just recently passed, but legendary sire, trained by Asmussen, and has run against massive competition. Ran in the Belmont Derby against Bolshoi Ballet, ran against Cellist, De Jure, Hidden Enemy, Palazzi, Mira Mission. I mean, these are all really good horses. And so, but again, has never really shown anything in those races. And so, kind of like what we talked about in the last race with Invincible Gal, I think Invincible Gal has a better profile, but it's just interesting to see these kind of big time horses that have run in big time races but not done well now come to your local track, so to speak, and kind of what you might expect there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for me in this one, and same thing, obviously the horses ran against like hella good horses here. I just don't like to see, and this is what I talked about on the last one. This actually, so the horse that I own right now, this is also what happened to him. You break your maiden in a competitive racetrack. So like, and this didn't happen first time out, but a lot of horses, they break them first time out, and the owners are like, okay, well now we got to go to the Kentucky Derby, like you just, And of course, like you're excited. The horse just won that, you can only just dream to like watch a horse run and cross the finish line like second and third, and the thing won first time out. And so, but for me, this one's a little bit interesting because it didn't break it first time out, second, third, fourth, fifth. It took 6 starts to break its meet in a 75,000. And then they went right up to a grade 2, and then they went into a grade 1, and then they finally dropped down to an 80,000 optional claimer. And, he got 6. Like,
Yeah.
I'm bummed that the horse hasn't been put in a competitive, and I'm not a trainer here, and I'm not questioning, obviously Steve is amazing, but I'm bummed that the horse hasn't been put in a place where he's won since his maiden.
Yeah.
Like I do, at the optional claiming 80,000, drop him or something, like give him the confidence back. And so
Yep.
I just think that there's horses in here that know how to win, are confident to win, and I'm worried that this one's just a little bit on the bummer side right now. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna fade.
Yeah, same here. So, well, I'm not going to put you in the spot to name a winner necessarily for this one, but I will say I think for me, I am going to go with the 1-4-11-7. I like Search for Truth a lot, and I might change my mind, but I really like that horse. I like Slickback, I like Draft Capital, and then I like Experienced, the 7 horse on the very back end. Well, listen, Bri, thank you so very much for taking time. And for those listening, make sure to follow Bri on Twitter at the handle Bri Mott and check out Stable Duel. Build yourself a winning stable. See if you can beat me. See if you can beat Bri. See if you can beat some of the others out there. And Bri, thank you again. I hope to have you on in the future, and all the best at the races.
Thank you so much. This was fun. I'll always come on.
Well, a huge thank you again to Bri. That was a lot of fun. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed the Colonial Downs preview for the Virginia Oaks and the Virginia Derby. And hey, listen, if you're out of Colonial Downs, look for a guy wearing this little cap. Come say hi. Always happy to meet people, talk about horse racing. Might even buy you a drink if you give me a good tip. So be on the lookout for that. And remember to check out my blog for all of my picks for Tuesday's card. And the only place to get those is amalfimedia.com. Finally, just a reminder to subscribe to Amalfi Media on YouTube. Be on the lookout for the Win Place Show podcast on your podcast platform of choice. And then follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. We got you covered for all the great horse racing content you need to get through the Breeders' Cup and beyond. Until next time, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.